Just a reminder, all of these have been recorded. I have sent out an email with the slide decks and the recording. So if you happen to miss last week or the week before, please feel free to go watch those recordings. They're there for you. And if you want to reference back to them at any point, feel free. So my name is Jenny Turner, if you don't already know, but today is probably my most favorite class because we're going to be covering everything you need to know about the basics of cooking. I used to watch Food Network and the cooking channel growing up, so I am very excited to dive into Cooking 101 today. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, so please try and stay on mute with your cameras off. And just remember that the information covered today is intended for educational purposes only and should not be interpreted as medical advice. And again, I'll be sending out an email after this with the slide deck, so all of the links that we cover today you'll have. So we're going to start by talking about some of the kitchen staples that might be helpful for you when you're cooking at home more frequently. And then we will make sure you understand some of the cooking terms and techniques. Sometimes reading a recipe can be super confusing with all of the terminology they use. So I want to go over some of the key words that you'll need to know. And then I'll give you some helpful resources when it comes to finding recipes. And again, if you're just hopping on, I did add all of you to the Healthy Eats Slack channel. So head over to Slack, look at that channel. It's just a place where you can share healthy recipes, share eating ideas, ask any questions, stuff like that. So check out that Slack channel as well. All right, so let's start off with these staples. Now, you might not need all of these items, so don't freak out if you don't have all of them, but they can definitely come in handy. So first, you've got your skillets and your pots, which can be used to cook a variety of foods on the stove top, such as proteins, vegetables, rice, and pasta. A sheet pan is utilized when you're using your oven. Glass storage containers are helpful to have just when storing leftovers. We've talked a lot about leftovers in the previous weeks, so definitely helpful to have a glass storage container. And then a good set of knives is a great thing to have in your kitchen. And then if you need to be precise with your recipes, you might need some measuring spoons and some measuring cups. I know some people prefer to eyeball certain ingredients, so you might not need these all the time depending on your skill level, or if you're baking, these definitely come in handy. You kind of have to be a little bit more precise when it comes to baking. So those are just some kitchen staples you might need. Knowing how to use your knives is extremely important. I encourage everyone to watch this video that I linked here when you have some time. It's just going to walk you through what each knife should be used for and how to keep your knives sharp. This video was very helpful for me, so I highly recommend watching that. Here are some important cutting terms you might see in a recipe. So if it says to chop, this means to cut the food roughly into bite-sized pieces. Dice means to cut into small uniform squares. Now, it's important to note that diced foods cook faster than chopped foods. So if you're crunched for time and you need to make something really quick, you might consider dicing your food instead of chopping it. A helpful way to do this quickly is to purchase a vegetable chopper, which I've included the link to that on this slide. I've found that it saves a ton of time when having to dice or chop many vegetables, especially if you're making a soup or something similar. That chopper has saved my life. So check that out if you're interested in it. But mince means to cut something into very tiny pieces. If you're cooking garlic, it will most likely say to mince your garlic or cut it into very small pieces. And then the last term is julienne, which is a pretty way of saying to cut something into short and thin strips. Think of shredded carrots that you would buy in a pack. That is what it should look like when asked to julienne something. Here's some more kitchen staples with some links to Amazon in case you're interested in purchasing any of these items. You do not have to. I'm not telling you to go buy these things, so don't feel that way. But they're there in case you need them. So a colander or strainer is used when draining water from pasta, or can be used to wash fruits and vegetables. That's a great way to use it as well. The one I linked here is extendable, so it can adjust to the length of your sink so that you don't have to set it inside your sink with it, which is really helpful if you're, washing other things in your sink. Your sink can kind of get dirty, so it extends and it sits on top of your sink, which is really cool. The next item is a grater, which is best for grating cheeses or vegetables. It has different cutting designs on each side, so you can grate and slice something, and use this one tool for both of those things. Then, if you're cooking or grilling any protein, it will be helpful to have a thermometer so you can make sure that your meat is fully cooked through or just cooked to your liking if you're cooking steak. That's a helpful thing to have on hand. And then a spatula set is helpful to have so you can stir, fold, saute, or flip anything you're cooking. A pair of tongs is good to have so you can grab food easily without touching it. Tongs can be also great for serving dishes as well. And then lastly, so important to have a cutting board. I linked a bamboo set of cutting boards with different size options, so you can check that out if you're in need of some cutting boards. So now we're going to review some kitchen appliances that could be helpful for you. Now, you do not have to go buy any of these again. You can use what you already have in your kitchen, but an air fryer is something that I have loved using. It can be a healthy way of frying foods. I love to cut up sweet potatoes and throw it in the air fryer, and it feels like I'm eating French fries from a restaurant, but it's just a simple sweet potato. A blender or food processor can come in handy if you like smoothies or you're wanting to create your own sauces. There are so many good sauce recipes that utilize Greek yogurt that can be made in a food processor. Greek yogurt is a great way to have extra protein very easily. So food processor and those blenders are good for making sauces or just smoothies, and things like that. An Instant Pot, a pressure cooker, and slow cooker are all ways to make cooking easier on you. I know in the previous webinars we've talked about just utilizing those slow cookers to throw ingredients in the beginning of your day. When you get home, you have a well-cooked meal. So I'm a huge fan of those crock pot recipes, but again, because they're just quick and easy, and you'll have a meal waiting for you when you get home. So those are some helpful things. Now, it's important that we dive right into talking about food safety, because safety first, right? Especially when it comes to cooking. So when preparing to cook, step one should always be to clean. You want to wash your hands before and after prepping your food. You want to wash your utensils you're using, and your surfaces after each use. Make sure you wash your fruits and vegetables under running water. You don't want to use any soap when washing your fruits and vegetables under running water. So just water, no soap. And then step two is making sure that you separate your food items. So using separate cutting boards for produce, meat, poultry, seafood, and eggs. And then use separate plates and utensils for cooked and raw foods. We don't want any cross-contamination when cooking, so be very mindful of this. The next step is to cook. When you're cooking, you can utilize that food thermometer that I mentioned earlier to ensure that your food is cooked to a safe temperature. I know I get freaked out about my chicken being undercooked, so using a thermometer has really helped me just ease my anxiety when it comes to undercooked chicken. After cooking, make sure that you keep your food hot. This is very important. You don't want to have meat sitting at room temperature for too long. And lastly, make sure that you microwave food thoroughly to get it nice and hot. So if you're using that microwave, make sure you get that food cooked thoroughly. The last step is to chill your food. So you can refrigerate perishable foods within 2 hours. Do not leave those perishable foods out of the refrigerator for more than 2 hours. If the temperature of the food is above 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you'll want to refrigerate it within 1 hour. Now remember to thaw your food in the refrigerator. I've made this mistake of setting out frozen meat to de-thaw, and I've just set it on the counter, set it in the sink, and I forgot about it. And when I remembered, it was completely room temperature, which can grow bacteria. So a good rule of thumb is to set your frozen meat in the refrigerator overnight before you want to cook it. Now that does take some planning. So again, plan your meals ahead of time and you should be good to go. Here is a list of terms you might see when you're reading a recipe. We're going to go through some of these more in depth in the upcoming slides. I'll be honest with you, some of these words I have never seen in recipes, so don't get worried if you've never seen some of these, because chances are, if you're sticking to basic recipes, you probably won't see some of these. Some of these are more for Gordon Ramsay and not for us average Joes over here in the kitchen. All right, let's start with some of the terms you'll see when cooking on the stovetop. So the first is sear. You'll probably see this when cooking meat. I know when we cook steak at our house, we like to sear it first and then we pop it to cook more thoroughly in the oven. So searing something is when you just brown it very quickly at a high temperature. So it almost creates a crust and it makes things really flavorful, and it adds some good color to whatever you're cooking. So that's what searing means. Next is saute. So you've probably seen saute when cooking vegetables such as onions. To do this, you'll just cook your food until it gets to a brown color and a small amount of hot fat. So whether it's oil, butter, you'll get that fat nice and hot. You'll throw your onions or whatever in there. You'll cook it till it's brown. You'll want to make sure that you are constantly flipping and stirring the food as it cooks at a high temperature so that it doesn't burn. If you are stir frying, you'll use the least amount of fat to heat meat, fish, or vegetables very quickly and over a high heat while stirring briskly. I love my vegetables cooked this way. It's a great, fast, and easy way to cook lots of veggies, and you're using minimal fats. The next way to cook on the stovetop is the steam method. You can use this multiple ways, but the first is to place the food in a rack or steamer basket above boiling water and cover the pot or pan with a lid to just kind of trap that steam. Or you can wrap the food in foil or parchment paper before it is baked or grilled. Or if you want the quickest method, you can move to the microwave and cover the food in plastic wrap to facilitate steaming. So the steaming method helps to retain the texture, color, taste, and nutrients of the food. So this is a great option to kind of keep that color, keep the nutrients, and again, you're using minimal fats here as well. Now, poaching is one of the toughest things to do, in my opinion, but this is where your water is heated to a very specific temperature of 160 to 180 degrees Fahrenheit. And you can cook delicate foods like eggs and fish with this method. Poaching definitely takes some practice. So practice a couple times if you're interested, but it's very tedious and it's very specific. So that's an option as well. Now let's talk about some oven basics. To cook in the oven, you'll need either a pan or a baking sheet. Your oven will most likely be preheated between 250 degrees and 500 degrees, depending on the recipe and the ingredient you're putting in there. You can cook all different foods in the oven. Some of my favorite recipes are one-pan meals that cook in the oven. So all I do is throw my meat and my vegetables in one pan, throw it in the oven. It's super quick and it's super easy. In the oven, hot air is used to cook food uncovered or uncovered. So you definitely want to pay attention if recipes say to cover your food or not, because it will cook differently, whether it's covered or if it's not covered. So pay attention to that. So roasting vegetables is a great way to add flavor to vegetables. You'll want to preheat your oven to 400 degrees. You'll rinse and you'll cut your veggies however you'd like. Just make sure that they are in bite-sized pieces so that they cook pretty well and they don't take forever to cook. Spread the veggies out on a sheet pan without much overlap so they all cook evenly. And then you'll drizzle with a little oil to coat and sprinkle with some of your favorite seasonings. And then you'll just bake until tender. Kind of depends on the vegetable you're roasting, but cook until it's tender. Baking chicken is something that everyone should know how to do. So we're going to break it down. Here is how you bake boneless and skinless chicken breasts. So you'll preheat your oven to 450 degrees. You'll place 4 chicken breasts in your baking dish or pan. You'll brush both sides with an oil and you'll rub on your seasonings. You'll bake for about 15 to 18 minutes or until the thickest part of the chicken reaches about 165 degrees. Again, that thermometer comes in handy for this. And then once it's cooked, you'll remove that chicken from the oven and you'll cover it with foil to allow the chicken to rest for about 5 to 10 minutes before serving. Again, this is just a general way to cook chicken. You can cook chicken a million different ways. So if this is not how you do it, totally fine. Whatever you do, if it works, keep doing it. Now let's bake some salmon. So again, you'll preheat your oven to 450 degrees. You'll line a baking sheet with foil. You want to make sure you blot the salmon dry on all sides. This is very important. Place your salmon skin side down, and then you'll brush with oil on the top. Sprinkle your seasonings, then bake until the salmon reaches 145 degrees. Once it's cooked, you can remove it. And then I love to sprinkle salmon with some lemon juice, squeeze that on top. You can put some chives, some parsley, whatever green stuff you want on top if you want to look fancy. But that's how you cook salmon. Now, salads. Salads are a great thing to make for a quick lunch or a quick side with your dinner. It's a great way to add variety to your diet, and everyone can make their salad to their liking. So add your favorite leafy greens to a bowl. Maybe you like spinach, maybe you like kale, maybe you like a mix of all of those things. Add those to a bowl and then add your veggies, fruits, and grains. You can add some protein of your choice. You want to consider adding some small portions of avocados, cheese, dried fruit, and then you'll want to dress with your favorite dressing or even make your own dressing. I know I've found a lot of good recipes for homemade honey mustard dressing. I'm a huge fan of honey mustard dressing. So definitely look up some dressing recipes. A lot of times when you get them from the store, they can have a lot of just crazy ingredients in there that you don't really want or need. So try making your own dressing recipe and find one that you enjoy. Now, quinoa. Quinoa is a very delicious and nutritious grain. So we're going to chat on how to make it. So you could add quinoa in a salad, or you can have it as a side with your baked chicken or your baked salmon. You'll want to rinse and drain 1 cup of uncooked quinoa. You'll heat some olive oil and then add some quinoa and cook it for 2 minutes. This will kind of get the quinoa lightly toasted, which adds a lot of flavor. Then you'll stir in 1 3/4 cup of water or low sodium broth, and you'll bring it to a boil. Then you'll lower the heat and cook it uncovered for about 15 minutes. You'll remove that from the heat and then let it stand for 5 minutes. And then you'll uncover it and fluff it with a fork before you serve it. I love quinoa. It's so delicious. It's easy to make. And it has lots of good nutrients, lots of protein. So definitely try to cook quinoa. Here are some great recipe resources if you're needing some inspiration for healthy meals. The American Heart Association has great low sodium heart healthy meals. So if that sounds appealing to you, definitely check that out. The USDA and My Plate have many different recipes on their website, and you can kind of filter through them based on what you're looking for. If you are looking for specific diabetes friendly recipes, check out this last link here. The American Diabetes Association has great recipes as well. And then as a reminder, I'll be sending this slide deck over to you after we finish today. So you'll have access to all of these links. And then again, check out that Healthy Eats channel, add recipes there. Sharing is caring. So definitely share any recipes that you love or your family loves. I'm sure we would all benefit from you sharing those recipes. Now it's time to decide on our next steps. So maybe you try and cook one more meal at home this week. Maybe you found an item that might be helpful for you in the kitchen and you try a new cooking technique with it. Write down something that you want to try this week. Feel free to put it in the chat to hold yourself accountable. I'd love to see what y'all will try this week. And I saw someone say the American Diabetes Association link is wrong, so I will take a look at that before I send that over to you. Thank you for catching that. I'll make sure to change that so you have the correct link. All right, that wraps up our third class of our Nutrition Simplified program. And our class next week will be our final session together, and we're going to discuss dining out. Now, we all know that you can't always cook at home, so we want to give you the tips and the tools for eating healthy while dining out, because we all know, life comes at us and we need to go to a restaurant, whether it's to celebrate a special occasion or just a fun family weekend dinner at your favorite restaurant. So we want to give you the tips and tools to make some healthier choices when reading over the menu and all that fun stuff. So you don't want to miss that session next week. It should be a really good one. And that concludes our session today. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat or come off mute. I love to answer those questions, whether it's about cooking, recipes, any of those links I sent. Feel free to ask away. And if you don't have any questions, thank you so much for joining. Happy Friday. Hope you all have a great weekend. And yeah, I'll stick around for a few seconds to answer any questions.
Hey,
Okay, Jenny, I have a question for
Yes.
you. I've been trying to make the perfect poached egg for many years, never been able to do it. How do you measure 160 to 180 degrees?
That's a good question. I know they have thermometers for that. I don't know if it's the same one as meat thermometers, but I do know that because I've seen ones in the pot that go in the water. So I know that's a thing. I would have to look it up to see if there's like certain ones you can use. Does anyone know about this? I don't want to give you the wrong answer, but I'm pretty sure they have thermometers for that.
All right, thank
I'll
you.
have to look it up. Yeah, you're welcome. I'll look it up and chat you, but that's a great question. Poaching eggs is hard. So kudos
Hey,
for you for trying.
Jenny, first of all,
Yeah,
thank you for doing this.
of course.
Just a quick question, the last session, which I think you would have gone over the nutrition label and all.
Yes,
How do I access that recording? Like, is there a SharePoint link where all these sessions are stored?
let me grab it.
Thank you.
I will put it in the chat right now.
Thank you, Jenny.
Of course. Any
Yeah,
other questions, guys? Yeah.
regard to the thermometer, any thermometer will work. You
Okay.
can use those laser ones because you don't need a touchless, right? So that would be the perfect.
There you go. There's your answer. Wow, technology is great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions? Go ahead and stop our recording.